Because see if this works. So this morning I wake up and I'm thinking, I don't know why. Well, I know why, but I'll just say that I don't know why. But anyway, I'm thinking about the video I posted yesterday about the marriage supper. The man that didn't have on the right garment, the outer darkness and all that. And then I was saying how that the Pharisees, Jesus was at odds with the Pharisees. Well, the Pharisees were at odds with him, really, but he had to always rebuke them and chastise them. And the parables, a lot of the parables he gave were about them, to rebuke them and chastise them and let them know something. Like the rich man and Lazarus, that was about the Pharisees. It wasn't about everybody. It wasn't about an eternal hell. It was about the treatment of the Jews by the Pharisees. So anyway, and that was all predetermined. That was all planned. That was all according to script. In other words, the Pharisees coming against Christ because he had a message that he wanted to give, and that's why he gave the parables. But anyway, and as self-righteous and as hateful that the Pharisees were, he chose someone that was a Pharisee. He chose the Apostle Paul, who was formerly Saul, the Pharisee Saul. He was a Pharisee on steroids. He was again, self-righteous, full of hate, so much so that he was like a bounty hunter, okay? He was like a religious bounty hunter. He was out hunting down innocent people and putting them in prison and having some of them put to death because he had such a hatred for Jesus, okay? So Jesus, why would Jesus choose that man, Paul, as his primary source of revelation to his plan and purpose, to Christ's plan and purpose, which is to save all? Now, why would he use a Pharisee to do that? The ones that he was always at odds with. Why wouldn't he use a carpenter or a fisherman or a butcher, baker, candlestick maker, whoever, besides a Pharisee? Now that's kind of weird, isn't it? Because he was totally always at odds with the Pharisees. And yet he took Paul and caused him to believe, made him believe. Now, a person could try to debate that, but there's no debating about it. I asked a preacher one time, I says, could Paul have rejected Christ when he came, on the road to Damascus? Could he have rejected Christ and said, this I don't want anything to do with you? And the guy says, yeah, he could have. And I said, okay. I just wanted to know what you. I was going to stand there and try to debate the guy because you can't. Anyway, there was no debate. There was no doubt when the resurrected Christ shows up in your life. There's no denying that. There's no saying, no, I don't want to have anything to do with that. And it's not by force. It's by his presence. Okay? Now, when Jesus was on earth as a man, the Pharisees did not see him for who he was because he was not the resurrected Christ. He was just a man. He was more than a man, but he was, in their eyes, just a man professing to be the Messiah. Okay, so they could not see him for what he really was. But the Apostle Paul saw him he was blinded, but he saw the light and he heard the voice of Christ. Okay? And whenever a person is, here you would have the creator of all things in your presence, whether you can see him in a bodily form or not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to, he wouldn't even have to be a bright light. It could just be his spirit that's, put upon the person. Once you have that spirit upon you, you're going to believe. And that's what happened to Paul. And so if Christ were to do that for him, this really evil, wicked, hateful, self-righteous Pharisee, then he's going to do it for all. And Paul himself even states that, gives evidence of that in 1 Timothy, where he says, I became the pattern, the example after which everyone else will believe, shall believe. Okay? He was the prime example of how everyone else is going to believe because of God's, well, His grace, His love, His mercy. That He had mercy on a very evil guy, a Pharisee. The ones he was, and was to show the world that, hey, even though these Pharisees were really bad, they were always after me. They were always trying to trip me up in something, and they're going to be saved. Just like he told the Pharisees, he said, that the tax collectors and the publicans and the harlots are going to enter into the kingdom before you do. Again, he didn't say that they weren't going to enter in. He said these other people are going to be ahead of you. Whatever. But what that really means is that, hey, you're going to get in, but you might have to be in the back of the line there, but you're going to get in. But I just find that interesting that he would choose the very person that was always at his, always messing with him and trying to, just giving him a hard time. He could have chose anyone. He could have chose a fisherman. He could have, anyone, a nice person, a good person. But he wanted to choose the worst of the worst to show that, hey, look at this person here. Look how bad they are. And they're not even a believer. They don't even believe. And then they're evil on top of that. Hey, I'm going to save them. That's a message to the world that, hey, you're all good to go. Okay? You're all going to be saved because of what I did for this one person. If I did this for one person, this evil person, and made them believe in me, then you're all good to go. Now again, that doesn't mean, well, you can now that I know that I can, everybody's going to be saved, and I'm going to be saved, no matter, even if I'm an unbeliever, even if I'm a murderer and this and that, I can just do whatever I want to do. No, that's not. There still is a thing called correction, and and the correction is not fun. The correction hurts. The correction is painful. The correction can go on and on and on and on and on. But eventually it comes to an end. But you reap what you sow. It's not a cape. You just don't walk in and, you just don't, hey, Jesus, I just got through murdering someone. Well, come on in, son. I got your mansion all prepared for you. You're gonna, there's correction involved. Who the Lord loves, He corrects. And when thy judgments are in the earth, the inhabitants thereof shall learn righteousness. There is judgment, there is punishment, there is correction. And that'll be whatever Christ deems fit for each person. Everyone's different. Everybody has whatever it is they need to have corrected. It all depends on the individual. But anyway, yeah. If he were to do that for the Apostle Paul, this really bad, evil, wicked guy, cause him to believe, make a believer out of an unbeliever, then he's going to do that for everyone else. Again, that's why Paul said, I became the example after which everyone else shall believe. That's in 1 Timothy 1:15 or 16 or something like that. Anyway.